All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel here in the 745i project. Next up is I'm going to fix all these little wires that these mice ate. You see I already replaced one of them here. They chewed out a section of this. I already went through and I replaced some of these sockets. So one of them was rusty enough that the terminal had fallen off, probably from all of the mouse pee that was on there. So I bought a couple of these at the BMW dealer. They're like $2 a piece. Replaced this one. Replaced this one. This one kind of melted. And then I got to replace, I think it's 7 wires. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 of them that they chewed through. Well, actually, there are 8 of them that they chewed through. Luckily, all of them are here. They didn't do any other damage that I have found yet. I've checked carefully of all of these other wires through here. These 2 wires over here that go to the blower switch were actually cut. I don't know exactly what these 2 wires do, but I'm assuming when they added air conditioning to this car, because you can see this is that brown and purple wire. Here's that brown and purple wire. It's got this blue lead that's attached to it. And then they just cut this other wire. I have no idea why. I may resolder them, I may not. I know when I took this out, these 2 were taped up together. I don't know if there's any reason to do that, so I might just leave them. I was hoping to put you guys on my nicer tripod here, but so far I have not been able to find a mount that I can fit in there and hook up my little phone holder. So unfortunately, I'm going to keep having to use my cheap little tripod here, so I'll get you guys set up on time-lapse and show some of this soldering. If you want to make fun of how badly I do this, go for it. If you want to offer me some advice, that would be even better. So, put you on time-lapse and do this real quick. Like I said, I am not the best at soldering. Usually it works out decent, but I'm also not highly concerned with it because this is just low power wires for the heating and air conditioning stuff. So should be simple as that there to get that one done. The hardest struggle is this little helping hand thing that I got here. It's not the best, but I like to clean it off a little bit after it's done. Put some electrical grease on there, and then put the heat shrink tubing on there to protect everything. Last thing I would want is my crappy soldering jobs starting my dashboard on fire. This is my second attempt at soldering this specific joint. I soldered it once. I didn't like how it turned out, so I cut it out. And then also the heat shrink tubing shrank on me because of the heat in the wire, and it was a little too close. So I'm going to do this one again. I've already got the other end of this wire all soldered up. But I am not the best at doing this. I can tell you that much. Also does not help that it's like 45 degrees in the shop here. When it does work, it turns out pretty good. The problem is when I do it, it doesn't always work. So I'm just cleaning this off. I got a little bit of rubbing alcohol on here. I've left too much flux on some of these before and they corroded from inside. The other trick I've seen is kind of filling it with some electrical grease. So you can put some grease in there. And then when you take your heat shrink tubing up from wherever it was, you put it over it, and then you melt it, that grease is encapsulated in there. And then it helps prevent it from corroding. So that one's done. Just basically 12 more joints to go, because each one of these I have to add, ended up having to add a little section of wire in them because the mice have chewed so much out of this. So like I said, each one of these I end up having to add a section of wire in here because the mice have chewed on some of these pretty decent section out. So makes it that much more difficult. So as you guys saw, I struggled a little bit with this green and white one just because the black wire I added in there was a little bit too short. So after I turned off the time lapse, I cut it out of there, and I finally managed to fish it out of the harness this way. Got it in there. I mean, when these things go in there, they're all nice, and or from the factory, these wires are all nice and tucked in and curved over here, but I'm not too concerned with it because since I don't have air conditioning, there's nothing really behind these, so it should be good. I got everything all soldered and connected. I'm going to go throw some new bulbs in here, put this back in the relay holder, kind of clean this out a little bit, and then put it back in the dashboard and see if I can get anything to work. We're a couple days later here. I did put this back into the car real fast and I tested everything. All these buttons did finally start to light up and work for the most part. Some of them have burned out lights in them. On this one, there's a burned out light in the bottom portion of this switch. I think these are the same, or use the same light bulbs as the older or later model lighted window switches. So I'm going to grab one of those and take it apart eventually and change that bulb maybe. Other ones like this, you can see this little white thing in here. That is simply a little bulb holder. Do this one-handed here. Had to put the camera down there. I couldn't do this one-handed, but this is a little bulb holder. That there's just a simple little bulb in there. These were burned out, so I just replaced them with some of the other little, they call them grain of wheat bulbs or something. And then after I put this in the car, a couple of these lights still didn't work. So I went out and I bought more of these holders just so I could go in and finally change all these, because some of these have corrosion in them. The one down there I have to get out still, so that's why I got all these switches out and everything. So there's that. The next thing was these onboard computers. So ever since I had the car, this thing didn't turn on. This is the German version. I bought a cheap US version off of eBay just in case, because this one looked all dirty from the outside, like there might have been something corroded on the inside. Maybe the mice peed on it. I didn't know for sure. So I bought this one just in case. It was like 15 bucks. I took this apart and everything looks good in there. So I think this one's going to work when I finally get everything else figured out. Later ones, so they call this 12-pin one, I think it's 12 pin or 12 buttons. So later ones that only have, I think, 11 buttons, or maybe they have 13. But later ones, they call those OBC-2. This is OBC-1. So the later ones, you can actually go in and you can change this display. You can change the backlight on it. People sell kits for it. You can see on these are just little fiber optics, which is probably peak of 1980s technology right there. And they have a little, one of these little bulbs goes in the back, and that lights all the keypad up on these. So that's what lights up the buttons and all the words and everything. And just for fun, I took one of them apart because I was trying to change stuff and see what was going on in here. So this is all not necessarily one piece. I'm sure if you really wanted to, you could get this apart. There's a little ribbon cable on here. But unfortunately, this is all just one piece. So this board here is plastic welded to the keypad in the front. I haven't figured out any way of getting it apart, so I'm not even going to try on this one. I'm just going to keep this one as a spare just in case the German one doesn't work. But the real reason that my onboard computer doesn't work is there's a tiny little fuse inside the computer which sits in the footwell on the driver's side behind the speaker. It goes right here. It's just a little 1 amp fuse, and even in BMW's service information it says that you're supposed to pull the fuse for the onboard computer before trying to jump start the car, because you will most likely blow that fuse out. So I got a couple of those off of eBay. No, not eBay, Amazon. You can change that fuse, put the German one back together, put these buttons in there, probably hook everything up and see if it works, and show you some stuff. Welcome to the underside of the dashboard here. So this is where the little onboard computer control unit goes. I forgot to mention this little chip thing here slides in. So if you're going to take the housing off of this first, you got to pull this chip out. You don't want to damage it. This is kind of what codes it for if it's European, or I honestly don't know what that thing does. These connectors are pretty simple. They just slot in here, push on there. They're pretty tight. This extra wire right here, most of the cars won't have this, but this goes to that side repeater light that I have on my car. So I will get these things connected and then plug in the controller and see if it actually works. So I got everything hooked up. I got the key on here. It kind of works. These 4 dots mean something, but I can't remember what they mean. So I'm going to have to look into that and figure that out if this thing doesn't work, it's not really a huge issue. It just gives you, your temperature and speed warnings, things like that. It's just kind of a neat little piece of 1980s technology, but if it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. One other thing I noticed back here, I got a little lazy and didn't actually solder this in, but you'll notice that there's a little crimped in jumper wire back there. So I thought I got lucky and the mice only ate the heater controls, but they ate one wire back here off of the dash side of the harness. So I just put in a piece of crimped wire, because after doing some research, I figured out that this was just a power wire that went to a connector that's not used. So I figured rather than having just a loose bare power wire hanging around out here with some electrical tape on it, I would just crimp it together. That way it's not dangling around back here. After doing a little bit of reading here, I finally figured out that to get rid of the 4 dots, that just means the battery was disconnected. You have to press this button twice, and then a 0 will pop up. It'll allow you to enter a time. I just put in some random time and 24-hour version of it. So some of the other stuff you can do here, use your temperature. I don't remember what most of these mean. I have the English one, but I don't feel like looking it up. Code here is a way that you can set a code so the car won't start. I am definitely not going to do that. This right here is kind of neat. It's a little stopwatch. So if you, for some reason, decide that you want to test your 0 to 60 time, you can do that. And it runs through in the background, and then you can hit stop, and it will stop it wherever you're going, or you can use it to time, your time to the next exit. It's a pretty neat little piece of 1980s technology. Fairly useless in today's world, but it's nice to have. I'll see if the lights on it here turn on. So, hard to tell, but the lights did turn on when I turned on the rest of the dashboard lights here. So, that means this thing's working. Well, after almost probably close to 2 months, I finally got this thing done and installed. So I have onboard computer works, hazards worked. I don't know why that's not lighting up. That's annoying. This thing is, I'm not sure if the blower works yet or not. I gotta get a new resistor for it. I can safely say that this manual control for the hot and cold is a pain in the butt, because I had to take out the instrument cluster at the fog light to come down here to get, I don't know if you can see it, but that cable in there to attach it. And it goes over here, down there. It's a short, stiff cable, so it's really hard to work with. But let me show you what this thing looks like with the, maybe not with the lights on. Battery's dead. Here it is with the lights on. Battery was disconnected, but you can see these work. You can hear the solenoids behind there click. My battery's pretty low, so I need to charge that. Normally, to set the time, I think you hold these 2 buttons down until it flashes, or you hold this button down. There we go. I don't know exactly what time it is, but everything looks like it works in here finally, and looks good. Ignore all these wires hanging out of the dash. That's a project for another day. All right, I'm going to talk to you guys later. Remember to like, share, and subscribe.